Hey guys, I'm going to pick up right where I left off in my last video, which was I gave you guys my top 4, my 10 out of 10 anime that I've watched over the past, I guess it's been maybe 5-6 years since I've started watching anime. I wouldn't call myself, a super fan kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of people are very, very invested in watching anime and critiquing it and all that kind of stuff. I'm more of a casual viewer, but I gave my opinion on my 4 favorite shows that would be the shows I would recommend to someone if I'm trying to convince them to give anime a shot. And now I'm going to talk about some other shows that I consider some of the best I've watched. I call them my 9 out of 10 as I've ranked them on my anime list, which I'll have the whole list posted in the description below, the link to that. And these are the shows that primarily if you are already somewhat interested in anime and want to check out some more, these are the big ones that I've watched that really impacted me and I think are must-sees for pretty much everyone. I'm going to try and break them down by categories kind of because there's, like I was saying in my last video, a lot of different genres and stuff within the genre itself of anime. I'm also going to have some bonus content at the very end of things that you might not consider anime but kind of help a lot of people get started. So I'm going to start this list off with one of the most popular anime shows that's on right now, and that's Attack on Titan. They're in their, I guess we'll call it 3rd season. They broke the 3rd season in 2 parts. Going into their 4th season. Attack on Titan is probably one of the most well-known anime out there right now, and it's fantastic. It deserves to be as well-known. The only reason it's not in that 10 out of 10 tier I was mentioning earlier is I think that there's some plots to it that more rely on the action and difference in the type of story it is rather than actual development of characters. But they definitely have made up for that in recent seasons and are a fantastic show. I just, personal preference, putting it at 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10. For all these shows, I'm going to try and do a quick overview of what they're about, but I might skip a couple just because I think 10 shows listed and I want to get through all of them. But Attack on Titan is basically the world is overrun by giant monsters and there's a bunch of other plots to it. Next on my list, that's also a very big name right now because of recent events. I said that weird, but Your Name is one of the only movies on my list. I haven't watched a ton of movies, maybe 10, 12 movies that are anime style. Your Name is absolutely fantastic. I feel like if I try to explain it, I'm going to spoil a lot. So it's one of those you just have to watch. And the reason it's such a big deal right now is there's another anime movie by the same production company and all that called Weathering with You, Tenki no Ko. It's in theaters right now, or just came to theaters in America, and people have started watching it and really are hyped about it. I'm looking forward to seeing it myself in theaters or waiting until it comes out as a subbed version on a streaming website. But Your Name is absolutely one of the best anime out there. If rather than Attack on Titan, which is very monsters and action and things like that, Your Name is a slice of life story that pretty much sets itself in realistic situations. There's some other things that go on, but you would have to watch it to find out. And since I'm on the topic of that slice of life but somewhat different style things, I'm going to talk about Erased, which is another kind of story of childhood. And a lot of anime have the general theme of some supernatural force lightly sprinkled in it. There's some that don't, and I'll talk about a couple of those in a second. But usually there's the overall theme in a lot of anime is that someone's more powerful than they should be. For example, I mentioned in my last episode, One Punch Man, he is the epitome of more powerful than he should be, but to the to the absolute extreme. Your Name and Erased are very much a slice of life kind of story. Erased, again, I feel like I'll spoil it if I talk too much about the plot, so if you're interested, go watch it. I'm gonna, move on to my next kind of subgenre, which is commonly known as isekai. The general genre of isekai is basically when a person is thrown into a fantasy universe but still is the person that they are. The most popular one that people know of is Sword Art Online, where a bunch of people are caught in a video game where it's like a virtual reality thing, but they're stuck in the game and it's all real. If you're an American, think about a movie like Jumanji. Kind of the same idea, except more reverse. Rather than the fantasy world coming out, you're going into the fantasy world like Robin Williams in Jumanji. But isekai is a very popular genre of anime. Personally, I have two that I rank above Sword Art Online in this 9 out of 10 category, whereas Sword Art Online I really put more in my 8 out of 10 category. Still very good, but not as good as the two I'm going to talk about, which is Log Horizon, which is almost an identical story arc to Sword Art Online. I just think the characters were more well-developed, the story was more well-developed. But overall, the general gist of what's going on is exactly the same. And then there's Overlord, which, again, all the isekai especially can be very similar. Overlord is just one where the main protagonist is kind of on his own, which I thought was interesting, rather than having a bunch of other characters around him that are also kind of stuck in the fantasy universe and figuring things out. He's on his own and figuring it out on his own and dealing with the world around him as a human, even though he's stuck in his fantasy world. Whereas Log Horizon, just like Sword Art Online and popular anime like that, is a bunch of people caught in the fantasy realm and figuring things out together. So now I've talked about those. My next subgenre I wanted to hit on is sports anime, which honestly, I don't think I've given sports anime enough of a fair shot. I know there's a couple that are very well known that I haven't watched yet that I hope to eventually, but based on the two I've watched so far, and the fact that I love both of them, I put them both in my 9 out of 10 list on my anime list. That's Haikyuu, which is the main volleyball anime. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing things wrong. I don't speak Japanese at all, but Haikyuu is basically the story of a volleyball team in high school that is on a path to trying to get to a national championship. Main protagonist is a kid that's way oversized to be like a main volleyball player, but even though he's so undersized, he overcomes that by just training real hard, things like that. It's a very common theme in a lot of sports-type anime where it's this guy that isn't so good ends up being better than he is just with pure passion and trying real hard. And then to counter that, Haikyuu is very, very popular, probably the most popular sports anime out there, maybe tied with Free, something like that, which, again, I haven't watched, but I believe they're a Kyoto Animation work, so if you're familiar with Kyoto, I might even have Kyoto in this list, but I'm not going to really look carefully right now. They do great work. My other sports anime I'm going to mention is 1 Ounce, which a lot of people haven't watched, but I thought was absolutely fantastic. 1 Ounce is a baseball anime. Personally, I have no interest in volleyball or baseball, but both these anime were so well done. It's hard to ignore how great they are. This is the same deal with when I was mentioning in my last video, Your Lie in April. I have no interest in piano or violin or really classical music at all, but Your Lie in April is just so good. It doesn't matter what the story is. It just hits you right in the heart. 1 Ounce and Haikyuu, aren't at that level, but I still rank them 9 out of 10. 1 Ounce baseball, where the main character is so extremely good at baseball that he's like a savant at it, and you would have to watch it to see more beyond that. There's a general theme in anime where you have some characters that are considered OP or overpowered. The epitome of that is One Punch Man, where he's so powerful that it's overpowered, and there's nothing that could stop him from being the absolute best. And he's not really trying to be the absolute best, but he just is. A great example of this OP style of anime is Black Butler. This was up there with one of the first anime I watched. Black Butler is basically about a demon butler that cares for a kid. And the butler himself, the demon, is so overpowered that whatever the command is that he's given by his master, he could follow it with absolutely no issues one way or another. He figures things out in a very human way, meaning that all his accomplishments are done through physical ability rather than just magical demon powers, which I thought was very interesting. There's a lot more to the storyline. All these are very, very bad description of the story. I'm just trying to give a gist of things. Really, best thing is just quickly read over like what the intro is on My Anime List or any given site, or watch the trailers for them. That's the best way you can learn about them. But Black Butler was one of the first I watched, so it holds a special place in my heart. I rewatched it fairly recently, and they do have a lot of new seasons, so there is a lot to watch in it. But again, these are all 9 out of 10, so these are all ones I highly, highly recommend. Next, this one doesn't even fall in a genre. It's Death Parade. I guess it would be considered another parody type anime. General concept is a girl is in, I guess, a purgatory type place, where the general theme is that people are forced to partake in these games or challenges of sort to figure out situations and humanity and all that. Again, I'm terrible at these explanations, but it's a whole different area of anime. So if you're trying out different anime and you haven't found one that you quite like, try something like Death Parade because it's so different that maybe it'll strike your interest. And then the last two I have on my list, first I'm going to start with Soul Eater. I'm usually not into the longer, I forget this Japanese word for it, but like action adventure type anime where it's like this big long storyline and the characters kind of figuring things out. The Hunter x Hunter and Naruto type anime, those really aren't my style, but Soul Eater is probably the closest I have to that, where the main characters are in a school for, what would it be, I guess, a school for Grim Reapers. Future Grim Reapers are taking souls and stuff. It's a very childish style show. The themes itself aren't super childish, it's not babyish at all, but it's done in a more childish way than I think any other. I'm looking through my list real quick. Yeah, everything I've listed was very mature themed, and the storylines and stuff were very adult, I guess. Not, R-rated or anything, but definitely PG-13, whereas this is more of a, I guess still technically PG-13 because the general concept is dark, but just in a lighter tone, a more comical tone. There's more filler stories and things like that. So it's my favorite out of that genre of like adventure anime would be Soul Eater. And then the last one I'm going to bring up, which is the most hyped anime of the past year or within recent history in general, probably since Attack on Titan first started a couple years ago. And that's Demon Slayer, which at first I didn't expect to be all in on the hype, but after watching it, I totally understand the hype. It's absolutely fantastic. General storyline is similar to what I was mentioning with, I'm blanking on which one I was talking about, but the general storyline is that this kid is trying to become a demon hunter, demon slayer, and originally he's not good at all, but he works hard at it and becomes one of the best, at least as far as we've seen. The show I mentioned recently with that same idea was Haikyuu, where kid wasn't a great volleyball player, doesn't have the physical ability to do it, but tries so hard that he overcomes that and does great. It's the same deal with Demon Slayer. The kid wants to be a Demon Slayer, tries super duper hard and practices real hard and becomes great. The most common example of this type of anime would be Naruto, where the main character is not the best ninja or anything in the world, but he tries as hard as he can and becomes one of the best. Demon Slayer is absolutely fantastic. One episode I plan on doing in the future of this show is probably talking about the opening songs and themes for all these shows, because that's a very specific thing to anime. Is the opening songs are so iconic and well known that, and they're so crafted that they are a thing of beauty in of itself. It's not just catchy and memorable. They're actually works of art and animated things of their own right. So that's definitely a show I want to do eventually to also talk about. And then some little throw-ins I'm going to put at the end here that if anyone that was very into anime was watching this and heard me say this, they would definitely come at me. But in my opinion, the two animes that aren't anime that really got me initially interested to even attempt to watch any anime at all were Yu-Gi-Oh! And Avatar: The Last Airbender. Both of them are done in a very Japanese style, very anime style. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is somewhat acknowledged as an anime, but Avatar probably will never be acknowledged as anime because it wasn't done in Japan or anything like that. It was a Nickelodeon production. But both of them have the style and the feel of an anime, and I think that's what first gave me the interest of at least trying anime to see if I would like it. Since I liked those so much, I was willing to give anime a shot. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. I'll see you all in the next episode, and tune in for that. Thanks.